All right. Hello again, adventures, and welcome to the end. That's right. The time we have all fought for. All the lives lost. All the profits squandered. They have all led to this point. The OGL drama is, oh, of course it's fucking not. Hi everybody. Huge announcement. OGL 1.2 is dead. It is gone. It is finito. Pick another language and end it. It's gone. The OGL 1.1A is here to stay, and the biggest news of all, the entirety of the SRD for SRD 5.1, which is effectively D&D 5th edition, is now out under a Creative Commons Attribution license. Guys, there is no better result than this. Like, I kid you not, no one could have asked for a better result. No one asked for this result. Or I bet a few people did that had no idea what exactly this meant. But nobody could have asked for this result, because this is not something in a million years anyone thought would ever be put on the table. So let's talk about what this actually is. And I'm going to start this off by saying I was wrong. Dale Kingsmill, the amazing and significantly more skilled and talented YouTube creator than I am. If you don't check out her stuff, she's at Monarch's Factory here on YouTube. For the life of me, I cannot remember what she is ever. I know she's Daily Dale at Daily Dale on Twitter, and I can't remember what she is on Twitch. But she has a lot of cool things. I reviewed a really cool supplement that she created for the Theros D&D stuff like years ago at this point. She's amazing. She's actually played at my D&D table. She's played at my table a few times. Once for D&D, and then she was actually one of my Power Rangers. She was the White Ranger in my most recent Power Rangers game. She did a live stream, I think yesterday or the day before. Like it was recent, and in the live stream, she was talking at the very beginning of it. She was talking about some of the stuff that she was kind of a stickler on. And one of the things that she was a stickler on was the OGL 1.1A cannot go away. And I said, well, that's not on the table anymore. And we had a slight little argument. And by argument, I mean she was streaming and could say whatever she wanted. And I was in chat every so often typing a message that would get very quickly lost in the flurry of other chats. But my response was, no, it's not off the table. The entire point of 1.1, which turned into 1.2, which was never going to be 2.0, the entire point of it was to put in language that would allow them to stop people from using their brand and diminishing the power of their brand from doing stupid stuff. And I had a little conversation with a few people in chat about it, and so I said 100% that was not going to happen. It just did. I was wrong. There's no other way to say it. I was 100% wrong on that. And I don't understand why I was wrong. And this is something really important that I think a lot of people need to understand. If you do not understand why a decision happens, or a decision happens and according to your assessment that isn't possible, like this situation, then you are missing key points of their thought process. Because human brains do not work illogically. And what I mean by that is like, oh no, people do weird things all the time. No, 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 no. What I mean by that is your brain will not allow you to do something that doesn't make sense to you. Now, there are a lot of situations where your brain can trick you into thinking things that don't make sense do, but there has to be an internal logic in your brain, otherwise it doesn't function. There's this thing called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is effectively when the information that you are getting conflicts with something that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt to be true, and your brain doesn't process that correctly. And so what happens, anyone that's ever felt cognitive dissonance, which it is a very, very unique feeling. It is not just, wow, I didn't know that, or, well, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense to me. Cognitive dissonance is an extremely uncomfortable feeling. It feels like the world doesn't make sense. You feel like you are the only sane person in a world full of crazy people. It is an extremely uncomfortable and debilitating feeling that will cause a lot of people to do incredibly out of their character actions because their brain cannot deal with this idea of, wait a minute, I did something that doesn't make sense. And so your brain will come up with these huge leaps of logic to find a way to make things make sense. And that's when you get people doing things like breaking off friendships that have lasted for decades simply because there's a disagreement and one person has gone, no, no, I can't accept this. And so the only thing that their brain can do to make sense is, well, this person is lying to me and is trying to hurt me, and therefore I have to stop being with them, because it was easier for their brain to get to the point of, obviously I never knew this person, than it was for them to go, well, apparently the way that I've perceived the world up until now was wrong. So bringing that back to this decision, I have missed something. And that 100% is not surprising. I do not have any contacts at Wizards of the Coast. And to be perfectly honest, I'm sincerely doubting anyone does. Because, again, this entire saga has been nothing but lie after lie after lie with little bits of truth put in there to make the lies seem more believable. Everybody has lied to you about this, except for Wizards of the Coast. The only company that hasn't lied about this is Wizards of the Coast, and that's the only company that anyone is mad at right now. And that's the thing that blows my mind. Like, Linda Coolidge or whatever his name is, she lied blatantly. Nobody cares. They love her. She's been amazing. Ginny D lied to you. Not intentionally, but she gave absolutely easily provable false information and then went back to, well, I obviously, both sides have to be true. No, you were lied to, and then you lied to other people unintentionally, but you did it. So did D&D shorts. They lied over and over and over again. Like, everybody in this has lied except for Wizards of the Coast, and they're the only people that are getting shit on by this. So have fun with that. That being said, I don't understand why this decision was made. I think this is the best result anyone could have asked for. I don't think anyone could have asked for this. Like, this is an amazing thing. We'll talk about why Creative Commons is such a big deal. But it's just insane how amazing this is. And again, my prevailing theory, which I still don't think is wrong, is the reason all of this stuff came up is, for those of you that don't know, Ernie Gygax, one of Gary Gygax's kids, if you don't know who Gary Gygax is, he's the dude that made D&D. Like, it started in his basement. There's another dude that I can never remember his name, and I feel real bad because nobody knows who he is, but it's Gary Gygax and this other dude from, I think, Minnesota or Michigan, I can't remember which. They both border Wisconsin, so. They used to play this game called Chainmail, which was a miniature battle game, kind of like Warhammer, if you're familiar with that, precursor to Warhammer. And they had a lot of miniature war games that existed, but most of them were for modern things, like you would have tanks and stuff like that. Chainmail was a medieval miniature war game. They would, instead of controlling armies, I wonder what it would be like if we could just control a single character. Oh, and what if we added magic and other stuff like from Lord of the Rings? Wouldn't that be cool? That's where D&D came from. So Gygax, years and years and years, made D&D and did cool stuff. In the late 80s, TSR was purchased by Wizards of the Coast. I'm not 100% certain. Anyway, TSR, due to some bad business decisions, by the way, TSR is who originally published Dungeons and Dragons. TSR gets purchased by another company, eventually gets purchased by Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast eventually gets purchased by Hasbro, and that's how we have everything we have right now. However, TSR, the brand itself, was never really utilized by Wizards of the Coast or by Hasbro, so it had just been kind of dying. A few years ago, Ernie Gygax, one of Gary's kids, I believe it was Ernie. I'm not 100% on this because I'm going back to the fog of being on benzos when this was happening, so I may get a few details wrong, but the idea behind it, Ernie Gygax buys TSR, the brand TSR, so he can make his own TSR. This is when the OSR was getting really, really big. OSR, Old School Revolution, which is basically everyone's going, the original D&D was the best, and all y'all, you just ain't playing real D&D, because real D&D has tables, and everybody dies like every third episode. That's what real D&D is. This thing where you're rolling death saves, shit like that, that's not real D&D, and y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. So OSR is getting real big. Ernie Gygax thinks he can capitalize on that, buys TSR, and thinks that by buying TSR, he has bought the rights to Dungeons and Dragons that used to be owned by TSR. It's not how copyright and trademark law works, and it never has been. I don't know what really moronic lawyer Ernie found that told him that he could do this, but he was 100% wrong. So what Ernie decides to do is they make a new TSR and they start developing their own version of Dungeons and Dragons. They're calling it Dungeons and Dragons because they think they have the rights to the name Dungeons and Dragons. They don't. This is a really, really important point. They think they own trademarks. They do not. As he develops it, he gets a bunch of people on board that are not good people. He effectively made, from my understanding, again, I never read this, so I'm doing something that I'm going to tell you guys, don't do this, but whether or not this is true is kind of beside the point, because this was the public perception, and public perception is what is at odds here. So I don't know if this is 100% true, but I read a few snidbits of it. Effectively, what Ernie Gygax made was Dungeons and Dragons White Supremacy Edition. It was bad. Again, I did not read the entire thing. I read snippets, which again could have been taken out of context, could have been fake, whatever. I did not do my fact checking on this because everyone was talking about it, and at this point, it actually doesn't matter if it was true or not. Everyone thought it was true. So it creates this really, really horrendous game. Kind of, again, they were targeting a very specific market, which was the OSR people, who, again, are we're playing a real D&D, and the anti-woke crowd at the same time. Because there was starting to become some pushback, again, years ago, with D&D was starting to use more inclusive language, and they were very heavily trying to target the woke market because every business was. By the way, for anyone wondering, targeting the woke market is a massively stupid idea. There is no money in woke. There isn't. The idea of the get woke, go broke is not is not like this right-wing disgusting. No, the market itself doesn't have enough disposable income to target, because the woke market tends to be young millennials, generally between about like anywhere between about like age 13 all the way up to like mid to late 20s. None of them have any money. And they will be very happy to tell you that. They have no money. So targeting a market from a marketing perspective, targeting a market that has no disposable income with a product that is entirely based on a need for a disposable income is just stupid. So the idea of get woke, go broke is not that woke ideology is somehow toxic to businesses. If you guys want me to talk about the nonsense that is woke ideology from a business standpoint, not from a, I'm not going to tread on that at all. But from a business standpoint, I can do a video on that later. Let me know in the comments down below. But and a lot of right wing people do think it's the fact that it's the woke ideology. It's not. It's that they're targeting a market that, first of all, is super tiny, because woke people make up like 5% of the U.S. population and a significantly smaller amount of the world population. So you're targeting a market that's super tiny. They have no disposable income. It's just get woke, go broke is 100% true. But it's because it's just a bad marketing strategy, not because of ideology or anything. It's a dumb marketing strategy. That's what happens when you think Twitter is a real place. Twitter isn't. And what I mean by that is they did a study years ago. Obviously, the numbers are no longer accurate, but it's an accurate picture of what goes on. I think it was 80% of U.S. citizens, because it was just U.S. or people that live in the U.S., not just citizens, but people who live in the U.S., do not have a Twitter account. In addition to that, only either 80 or 90%, only 90% of tweets are sent by 10% of accounts on Twitter. And that number has gotten larger and larger and larger, as in the number of tweets. Like now it's close to like 95, 96%. A very tiny minority of people are actually putting everything that's on Twitter. So I did the math once. And if something is really important on Twitter, that means roughly 1 to 2% of the population cares about it. If you focus your marketing on Twitter, you are targeting a market of 1 to 2%. However, a lot of people have tried to target that exact same market. That's another reason why Get Woke, Go Broke doesn't work. Because you have so many other companies that are targeting the exact same market that even if they did have a significant amount of disposable income, they're going to run out of money. So anyway, going back to this. So Ernie Gygax was trying to target the OSR market, and he was trying to target the anti-woke market, which, again, is a bad decision. If you want to target anti-woke, my understanding is disposable income is a little bit higher with anti-woke than it is with woke, just because anti-woke tends to be older. They tend to have better jobs, simply because they've been working longer. But they're still a remarkably small group. A little bit bigger than the woke group, not by much. We're still talking like maybe somewhere between like 5 to 10% of the population. Vast majority of the population doesn't give a fuck about woke. So anyway, and by the way, for anyone wondering where I'm getting these numbers based on how effective marketing is in general. When companies do target the anti-woke market, generally you make more money targeting anti-woke than you do targeting woke, but neither one is a huge cash cow. So that's where I'm getting this idea, what's probably in the neighborhood of anywhere between 6 to 10%. Just based on numbers and how much more money companies make when they target anti-woke than when they target woke. So the numbers are made up, but that's what they're made up from. So anyway, going back to Ernie, he decides to target these two markets, and he does it in a really stupid way. White supremacy is not anti-woke, but there are white supremacists that happen to also be anti-woke. So he made a very common mistake where he saw something and assumed a causal relationship when it wasn't. Well, there are white supremacist people in the anti-woke group, that means anti-woke is white supremacist. No, that's not how it works. So creates this really, really abhorrent thing and is getting ready to publish it with Dungeons and Dragons on it. Brand identity and brand recognition and association is a measurable thing. You can put a dollar value on your brand, and it is used when getting things like loans. Something that a lot of people don't realize. Accounting 101. I'm gonna forget what it is. There's an equation, and because I hate accounting. What is it? Okay, so the main accounting equation. This is first day accounting. Is assets equals liabilities plus equity. What does that mean? Assets is effectively the value of your business. Liabilities are your debts. The amount of debt you have is part of the value of your business. It doesn't make a ton of sense when you say it like that, and it's remarkably more complicated than I want to get into because I hated accounting. But liabilities are your debts. All the loans, like if you have $1,000 in loans in your company, which is a remarkably small amount of loans, then your assets include that $1,000. The value of your company includes that $1,000 of money you owe someone else. Equity is effectively the value of the things you own. So really, really stupidly simple and overly simple example. I've decided I want to start a print company. I need a printer for that print company. The printer I want cost me $1,000. For anyone wondering, if you're going to be running a print company and you buy a $1,000 printer for it, you are going to fail. Most professional level printers that can do high volume cost in the neighborhood of anywhere between $50,000 to $100,000 for your entry level model. I know this because I used to sell them. I didn't sell those kinds. I sold consumer brand printers, and I worked with our print department that was actually professional, and I knew the value of all that, and actually almost got a job selling the high end stuff, but I was late to the interview, and I dodged a bullet on that one. It was great. So anyway, you never put your own money into your business. It's a dumb thing to do. So what you do, you come with a business plan, say, hey, this is my business plan. This is what I think is going to happen. I want a loan for $1,000 so that I can buy this printer. They go, okay, we think you have a good business plan. Here's your $1,000. When you are filling out your accounting paperwork and you're trying to figure out your assets, you have $1,000 in liabilities because you just got a $1,000 loan. And you also have a printer that's worth $1,000. So at that point, if that is the only thing your company owns, your assets are $2,000. Again, I know it doesn't make sense, but that's just how it works. So that being said, the value of your brand is part of your equity. You use that to get liabilities, to get loans and things like that. And what happens is if the value of your company, whether that's through stocks, whether that's through a fire, whether that's whatever it is, if the value of your company drops below a certain point where your equity or the things that you've put up against the loans, which a lot of times is the value of the business itself. If it gets below what you owe, the bank will say, hey, you can't cover your debts anymore, so we want all of our money back now. We're not going to let you pay it off the way that we agreed to, because if you default on this, we're not going to get our full money back. So right now you've got 30 days. It's called foreclosing. You got 30 days. Give us our money. And that's how businesses go into bankruptcy. It's not generally, oh, we're hemorrhaging money, we're hemorrhaging. The value of the business gets low enough to the point where the banks can no longer allow them, and not just bank, anyone that holds that they have liabilities for. So sometimes it can be other companies because you work on credit a lot in business. So the value of your brand is something that you get loans based on. And if something devalues your brand, it can cause your company to lose significant amounts of money. Publicly traded companies, it can cause your stock value to go down. But it can also just be the bank goes, hey, you know how we thought that your company was worth this much? Well, we've reevaluated it based on, new information. We've decided that your company is actually only worth this much, and because you have this much in debt with us, we don't feel comfortable having that amount of debt to a company that's only worth this much, because if you default on this, we don't think we're going to get our investment back. So we're just going to cut it right now. We're going to get all the money that we can right now. And if you're asking, well, why would they do that? Because they know they're not going to get all the money. Well, because the longer they wait, the lower the value of the company goes, and the better chance that some other creditor of theirs is going to do this first and get their money first. So it's not that it's not that your loan isn't, they're not going to be able to get all of their loan back. It's the idea that there's so many other people that have a piece of the pie here. As soon as you get under a certain point, everyone's going to jump because the last person to foreclose is going to get nothing. This is how business works. So, Wizards of the Coast sees this. If a product with Dungeons and Dragons on it that is claiming to be real Dungeons and Dragons from TSR, which is a company that people associate with Dungeons and Dragons because they're the people that made it, and especially the OSR people are going to see TSR and go, ooh, this is the real Dungeons and Dragons. If this gets to market, it kills the value of D&D because it creates a huge controversy. And under the OGL 1.1a, there's literally nothing Wizards of the Coast can do to stop it. Well, obviously they did, because I don't remember seeing this on store shelves. Well, that's the interesting thing. Because Ernie Gygax got really bad legal advice, he used trademarked things. And for those of you that don't understand, there are three kind of main things that deal with intellectual property in general. You have copyright. Copyright is the weakest form of protection, and copyright exists as soon as you create something unique. If I write a grocery list, and I decide instead of just writing a grocery list, I'm going to write a grocery list in the form of a poem. The second I put pen down and put it into some sort of physical medium where it can exist without me specifically being there, it is protected by both U.S. and international copyright law, which are different but similar. Now, you can actually go through the process of registering your copyright, which is significantly better. Because if you have to go to court over something, having a registered copyright is significantly easier to prove copyright infringement than just having implied copyright. And you can go and sue without registering a copyright, but you have to be able to prove that your thing existed before their thing, and you have to prove that they were aware of it. Like it's significantly more difficult. Whereas if you actually have a registered copyright, you can go, well, I registered it on this date. So on that date, it existed, and this thing didn't exist until after that. I don't have to prove anything else. Obviously, this is here. It is a publicly thing. And then you just have to prove that they were aware of it. So that is the weakest form of intellectual property protection. Trademarks are significantly stronger, but also significantly more limited. You cannot trademark a book. Because it is too large for trademark protections. You can trademark names, titles, brands. You can trademark images, things like that. Trademarks are significantly more difficult to get around because copyright has fair use. Fair use is an affirmative defense, meaning you cannot claim fair use until someone has already accused you of violating copyright. It is a defense in court. It's not something that just exists. But it basically is a way to get around copyright. Fair use does not exist for trademarks. Trademarks are 100% protected. The name Doritos is trademarked. Skittles is trademarked. And the interesting thing about trademarks is in order to keep your trademark, you have to aggressively protect it. That means if someone is doing something that's violating a trademark you own, you are required by law to stop them. You cannot go, well, they're not doing anything wrong or they're not making money off of it, so I'm just going to. No, if you do that, you will lose your trademark and then anyone can use it. There's a bunch of other ways that people can lose trademarks, like the word monopoly was trademarked as the name of the game, but monopoly is also an economic term that has existed for hundreds of years. There was a company in the 80s, I think, that made a game called Anti-Monopoly. And Parker Brothers, who owns Monopoly, took them to court because they said, well, this is violating our trademark. And that's what they're supposed to do. They have to do that. And the court case got to the end of effectively saying, well, monopoly has become such a commonly used word that you can no longer have that tight a trademark on it. I do not know if the trademark for Monopoly was just completely thrown out at that point, or if it was changed to be slightly like your trademark only applies for specific board games that do this. I don't know. Again, trademarks are very, very specific. So anyway, trademarks significantly stronger. There is no fair use of it to trademark. It is very, very difficult to do things, and it requires people to actually fight it. So because Ernie Gygax used a registered trademark that he didn't own, Wizards of the Coast was able to come in and go, no, you're not making that. You're not publishing that. You need to destroy all copies of it. It needs to go away now. And they were able to stop it. Now, Ernie could have gotten rid of all the trademark stuff and released it as something else. It wouldn't have worked because in addition to Wizard of the Coast cracking down on it for like 6 months before they did that, people were freaking out about it, and the new TSR just got such a bad name. I don't know if it's even trading anymore. Meaning if TSR is actually a company anymore, because I haven't looked into it for forever. But it blew up in his face. However, that was a huge wake-up call to Wizards of the Coast, because had he not made the rookiest of rookie mistakes, they would have had a huge problem on their hands. And had he followed the OGL 1.1a, they would have had to get significantly more creative as a way to protect their brand identity. So they took the first step. They decided, well, we're going to create a new OGL that's going to get rid of this loophole. If you make something that's going to destroy our brand, we're going to have the ability to cancel your license, which gives them significantly more freedom to actually pursue them in court. Again, without the OGL, if your OGL gets revoked for whatever reason, because you violate terms of the contract, they can actually go for you for breaking the contract. They can go after you for copyright infringement. There's a lot of different things that they can do. So this is, to me, it made sense why when they dialed everything back, they got rid of the money because they didn't care about the money. They got rid of the license back thing because they didn't care about the license back thing, and it wasn't what people said it was. And they specifically wrote in language to protect them in the same way without using language that nobody understands. But they kept the obscenity clause, which I've talked about before. I'm not a huge fan of obscenity clauses because they simply are too easy to abuse and have been abused over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I mean, if we go back to like the 50s and 40s and even earlier than that, a woman got pregnant outside of marriage, she could be fired from the very few limited jobs that women are allowed to hold at that point. based on decency clauses and things in contracts. Fast forward a little bit, coming out as gay or anywhere on the LGBT spectrum could have gotten you fired before the civil rights movement because, well, that's obscene. So using words like obscene and other stuff like that, they're just rife for abuse, and they have been over and over and over again. This isn't a slippery slope argument. We have tons and tons and tons and tons of examples of this happening throughout history. This is, if this happens the exact same way that it has happened over and over and over again, bad things are going to happen. So I'm not a fan of it, but I understood the process behind it, and while I thought there was ways to salvage that while still giving them the ability to go, no, you're going to hurt our brand. We're not going to allow you to do that. So now that they've released 5.1 in its entirety in the Creative Commons, which I'll talk about the Creative Commons aspect of it later, but it's a game changer. This does mean that they can't do what it felt like the entire purpose of this was. And that's where I go, okay, obviously I've missed something. Because if the entire purpose of that was to prevent people from being able to destroy their brand, which is an actual legitimate business interest, they have now not only gotten rid of their ability to do that, they've made it easier because 5.1 is out under Creative Commons, you no longer have to sign. You never actually had to sign the OGL, but you're no longer under any sort of licensing agreement. Creative Commons technically is a licensing agreement, but it is the most bland, open, universal licensing agreement that has ever existed, and it's that way on purpose. And Wizards of the Coast has no say in how Creative Commons works because the people that own that license are a nonprofit. So they have completely taken off their ability to regulate it at all. One thing I did find interesting, and I don't know, this would be something that I'd need to talk to someone like Leonard French, who's a copyright attorney on YouTube, or someone that specializes specifically in copyright licensing agreements, because the wording here is very, very particular. On the first page of the 5.1 SRD now is the declaration of the Creative Commons license. And on that page, they have a thing, anything that you release under Creative Commons, under the 5.1 Creative Commons, you have to put this notice in, which anyone that's worked, my Dragon Knight uses Creative Commons images in it. So I have a Creative Commons disclaimer in my Dragon Knight class that I published on the DM's Guild. So I'm very familiar with Creative Commons. I use a lot of Creative Commons stuff in everything I do. Like anytime you hear music, for the most part, it's going to be Creative Commons licensed. I love Kevin MacLeod. Apparently, Kevin MacLeod is from Wisconsin, and I have a buddy of mine that actually used to do improv with Kevin MacLeod, because he used to do. If you've ever seen Whose Line Is It Anyway, they have a pianist named Laura Hall. That was effectively what Kevin MacLeod did for my friend. So I found that interesting. But anyway, so all this goes back to the idea of, okay, my understanding, which apparently has to at least be partially wrong, was the entire purpose of this was to prevent another Ernie Gygax incident. And now they can't. They've not only have they gotten rid of the tool that they were going to use, that they have created a new tool that makes it easier for people to do that. But on that declaration, there's a little thing at the bottom that says, please do not reference Dungeons and Dragons in your document, other than to say compatible with 5e or works with 5e. And that, to me, I find interesting, because you don't see please in contracts. Please isn't something that you use. And because it is a request and not a requirement, I don't know if that actually has any legal weight. So that would be something I'd need to talk to an actual lawyer about, because I have a decent understanding of copyright law for someone that is not a copyright attorney. I'm probably more knowledgeable than most YouTubers are in copyright law because I had to study it in college, specifically because the choir I was in was trying to put recordings of the music that we sang on CD and sell the CDs of the students, and because we had only purchased performance rights and not recording rights, they wanted to know, because we were a school, if that was legal in that. And the basic response I had for him is, you want to sell something, you need to buy recording rights, which is really expensive, and a lot of these songs you can't buy recording rights for. If you want examples of the choir, as long as you keep it under 30 seconds, this is not legal advice, by the way. This is what I was told by someone else, and this is 20 years old at this point. Almost 20 years old. Wow, that's scary when I say it that way. The basic understanding was 30 seconds. 30 seconds, most companies won't hunt you down, and you can make an argument that is for educational purposes. Anything beyond that, someone's gonna come and knock on your door, and you're gonna get fined. Again, not legal advice. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried about what this means. Again, Creative Commons, fantastic. There's no way this could have been better. I will guarantee you, Kobold Press, and especially Paizo, whatever they come up with next, they will not license Creative Commons. They will lose too much if they were to do that. Again, this was... anyone that thinks Paizo is the good guys in this has no idea what's going on. Paizo was never the good guys in this. They saw an opportunity to make a shit ton of money, and Wizards of the Coast just cut that ability out from underneath them because they claimed they were doing this for the fans and not just to milk more money out of the fans like they've done countless times. Paizo is incredibly good at not only milking their customers for as much money as they can, but also the people that work them. There are just countless examples of them underpaying people, overworking them. Every bad business practice you've heard that requires unions to fix, which, by the way, they don't fix, Paizo's done it and then some. They're not a great company, and they saw a way to make a shit ton of money, and to be able to cut themselves off from Dungeons and Dragons, while not alienating their audience. Which, if they had done this without Wizards of the Coast and this whole situation happening, they would have lost a massive portion of their player base, because the reason Paizo is as popular as it is because it's Dungeons and Dragons. If it wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, no one would give a shit about it. So this was literally the absolute best thing that could have happened to Paizo, because they could say that we're going to create a new system, we're going to create this new orc license to fight for consumers. And now Wizards of the Coast goes, okay, you want a bluff? We'll call your bluff. We're going to release our entire SRD Creative Commons, meaning there's no way we can monetize it. Well, fuck. ORC will not be Creative Commons. I will guarantee this. And if Kobold Press doesn't use this as a chance to backpedal without getting egg on their face, they're a really stupid company. But again, because my brain doesn't work well, going back to this idea of, to me, this is a little bit scarier than them just modifying the OGL 1.2 and keeping that ability. Because part of me wonders, well, what's going to happen the next time somebody does something stupid, but not quite as stupid as Ernie Gygax? Because Hasbro is not going to allow the D&D brand to get tarnished, especially since... for those of you who don't know, they, I think, if I remember correctly, I think like yesterday or this morning, something like that. I think Hasbro laid off like 1,000 workers, something like that, because Hasbro's restructuring, and they have been for like a year and a half or 2 years or something. They're restructuring, and they're getting rid of a lot of the stuff that they make themselves. They're turning much more into a more licensing style company where they own all of these intellectual properties, and they're just going to license them out to other people, so that the other people have to pay to make them, and they have to pay to use the license, and then Hasbro just gets to rake in money. It's actually an extremely common business practice, and it makes sense from a business perspective, but it also means you don't need as many staff. So with the fact that Hasbro is licensing Dungeons and Dragons out for everything right now, and they're going to try and license it out for even more, Wizards of the Coast does not have a ton of power to fight people on Dungeons and Dragons. Hasbro does. They're a Fortune 500 company. And to me, this worries me a little bit more, because if people start flirting with things that Hasbro, in its own purview, decides are going to damage D&D, they may start getting litigation happy, and taking people to court, effectively to serve as warnings. And everyone has been focusing on copyright about this and going, well, fair use, you can't copyright game mechanics. No, you can't, but you can patent them, dipshit. And patents are worse than trademark, because trademark, theoretically, trademark only applies to a specific market. Like, you can have two companies with the same name that are in vastly different markets, and as long as there's not confusion that they're the same company, you can get away with it. Patents don't work that way. If you violate patent law, and you get sued for it, you're fucked. All they have to do is show, this is our patent, this is the thing you do. Do they look real similar? Cool. We own what you made. Trademark, they can stop you from selling stuff. Patent law, they own it. They can just take it from you. Patent law is bad shit. Actually, patent law is actually really good shit, but it's bad shit if you're on the wrong side of it. Yeah, part of me is wondering what exactly is going to happen next. Because again, what happened cannot happen again, especially not now that Hasbro knows Dungeons & Dragons is a thing and is actually using it to create value for Hasbro. So, while yes, this is a wonderful, wonderful, amazing, great the thing, it kind of worries me exactly what is going to happen with Hasbro, because fact of the matter is Hasbro cannot allow another Ernie Gygax incident. They just can't. Market's not in a great place right now. Every major tech company, I believe, right now has laid off tens of thousands of people. Most companies in the U.S. are laying off thousands, some tens of thousands, depending on the size of the company. Market's not in a great place right now. Stocks are not doing super well. So a single bad incident can cause issues. So yeah, obviously I was wrong about that, or at least I was wrong about the idea that this was the only way they could do it. To me, this sounds like they found another way to do it, and that scares me more than the OGL ever did. The OGL, even the leaked 1.1, which was never going to see the light of day if it hadn't been for Linda, even if that had gone into effect, it wasn't that bad a contract. I have signed worse contracts. I've signed worse contracts happily. It was not that bad of contract, especially since, and this is something I think a lot of people don't seem to understand. Wizards of the Coast is until very, very recently, like within the last couple years, Wizards of the Coast was the only company on the market that allowed other people to use their copyrighted works. And eventually they started letting people use some of their trademarked works. That's one of the nice things about my DM Guild license, is I'm allowed to use certain trademarks of Wizards of the Coast that you can't use under OGL. It's one of the reasons I like my DM's Guild license. So, yeah, I mean, it's impressive. This is stuff. But yeah, something. This is so out of left field to me. Excuse me. This is so out of left field. I'm gonna drink real quick. This is so out of left field to me that I can't understand the business sense behind it. And again, I have approached this entire situation from a business standpoint. Everything that has happened up until now has made perfect business sense. And if you go back to my videos, I predicted a lot of the stuff that was going to happen because it all made sense from a business perspective. This is the first time it doesn't entirely make sense to me. And that to me is significantly more scary than anything to do with the OGL or all of the bad takes and stuff like that. Like, it's just, this is weird. And somebody has made a decision somewhere that I think is going to be worse than what we saw. And again, this is not me shitting on Wizards of the Coast. It's another thing I'm really pissed off about. And again, I normally don't call people out, but these people are big enough that they deserve to be called out. Ginny D specifically replied. It's the top reply to the announcement that 5.1 SRD is now completely CC, or will be once it's officially released. She goes, "This is a good first step, but you lost a lot of trust with us." Fuck off, Ginny. No, they didn't. You know who lost a lot of trust? You lost a lot of trust when you spread lies and misinformation. D&D Shorts lost a lot of trust, though I don't know how he got trust, since most of his content is just completely not understanding how any of the rules work to create these broken builds that no DM in their right, left, center, pick a direction mind would ever allow, because they break the game. And Linda Coolidge, or whatever her fucking name is, lied repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over again. Roll for Combat lied repeatedly, over and over and over again. "We've got the 2.0, and they're spending $30. They're going to make you spend $30 a month to use Homebrew." Never going to happen. "They have AI DMs." Never going to happen. Those are the people that have lied repeatedly. They're the ones that broke our trust. They're the ones that are reaping the benefit off of this, because every new lie they told got them more money. And yet she has the audacity to say, "You broke our trust and this is the nice first step." Fuck you, Ginny D. I had the utmost respect, not only respect for you, I looked up to you. I admired you. And this has just gone to show me that, holy fuck, do you have no idea what the fuck you're doing? And you should be ashamed of yourself. You have a platform that allows you to do amazing good, and you decided this is what you wanted to do? Fuck you. Fuck every single person that destroyed tons of people's livelihoods, none of which were Paizo, Kobold Press, or Wizard of the Coast. They're all doing fucking great. No, you tanked a ton of people's jobs because they had to cancel Kickstarters and they had to freak out and try to figure out what they were going to do to make sure that they weren't using Dungeons & Dragons anymore. You ended friendships because people will go, "You know what? I still like Dungeons & Dragons." Well, then I'm not going to be a friend with you because they're horrible, disgusting people. And your response to this is, "Well, this is a good first step." Fuck off. I've never been so disappointed and ashamed in a D&D content creator than I am with Ginny D. And I realize this sounds really, really harsh because, let's be perfectly honest here, Ginny D was lied to. 100% she was lied to, and then she was used by D&D Shorts to perpetuate a lie. She probably feels really bad about that. But guess what? I've been lied to a lot. And you know what you do when you're lied to? You admit you were lied to, you apologize for believing it, and then you take steps to get better. You don't back down. You don't double down on the idea, well, maybe both of them are right. No, they lied to you. It shows just an immature person that can't handle being wrong. Guess what? You were wrong. You're wrong in this instance too. And I hate to call out someone so specific, but GDD is such a paragon in the critters community for good reason. She has done amazingly wonderful things. She has blown me away with her ability to create cosplays, to a lot of the creative endeavors that she does is just absolutely phenomenal. And then to do this, there is not a word in the English language to describe how disappointed I am in Ginny D. There just isn't. And she will never see this. I will guarantee she will never see this. And at this particular point, I really don't care. And this is not me asking other people to go, hey, Ginny D, you should watch this video. Trainer Jody system. I really don't give a fuck if she sees this or not. Ginny D is so far beyond my level of influence on anywhere that there would be no reason for her to even acknowledge I exist. I mean, it's so upsetting that these people that had no idea what they're talking about, that lied through their teeth over and over and over again, ruined people's lives, are now not just getting rewarded for it, but are taking the moral high ground. It's disgusting. Fuck you all. That being said, SRD 5.1 becoming Creative Commons is a massive thing. It really, really is. For no other reason than Wizards of the Coast can never change that. The interesting thing about, and I've mentioned this, I think, in one other video, the interesting thing about the Creative Commons license is built into the licenses, not only is it irrevocable, but it is updatable. However, if you update the license, the only thing you can do to update it is make it more open. Like right now, SRD 5.1 is using what's called the attribution license. There are 4 different ones. I forgot one of them when I talked about this before. There are 4 different licenses. There is your blanket Creative Commons, which is just, hey, use this. There is attribution, which is, hey, you can use this, but you have to say that I made it first. There is non-commercial, which is, hey, you can use this, but you're not allowed to charge for it. And then there is share-alike. And share-alike is basically, you can use this, but you're not allowed to copyright it in any way other than the way that I have already copyrighted it, or freer. And you can combine them. You can have a Creative Commons attribution non-commercial share-alike contract. You can have all of those in one contract. And that effectively means that anyone can use this content to make stuff based on it, but they have to say that you made it. They're not allowed to charge any money for it, and they're not allowed to license their new product on anything other than attribution, non-commercial, share-alike. This particular license for SRD 5.1 is attribution. So you can be commercial and you don't need share-alike. So you can copyright the thing that you make from it. You can't copyright the stuff from the SRD, but if you make your own product, all the stuff that you create in the entirety of the document, you are allowed to copyright that however you want. Which is a very, very, very cool, very great thing. And this also means for companies like Paizo, Pathfinder First Edition is D&D Third Edition. There's no way to get around that. There's no way for them to change Pathfinder First Edition into anything that uses the SRD 5.1. So Pathfinder First Edition shall always be OGL 1.1 Alpha. Second Edition, however, technically uses 1.1 Alpha, but I don't think it is beyond their ability to change enough of it, because Pathfinder Second Edition is different enough from Dungeons and Dragons just in general that I think it would be easy enough for them to replace anything that only showed up in Third Edition with the equivalent 5th Edition version and no longer be beholden to Wizards of the Coast whatsoever. They could be completely Creative Commons and not have to play with anything. And the unique thing about that would be if they did that and then released it under the new Orc license that they came up with. They would literally be doing the exact thing that Wizards of the Coast was yelled at before, which is stifling who can use their stuff, making it more difficult to be used. Which I 100% believe that they're going to do. And they're going to justify it by going, well, this ensures that, blah, blah, and we have control and we make sure that bad guys don't do bad things with it. Mm-hmm. I'm making a prediction because that's what Paizo's been doing this entire time. They were looking to make money. And they were hoping if they made a big enough stink about it that they could get Wizards of the Coast to lose market share. And they thought that they could gain that market share. That was never going to happen. Something that people have brought up quite a few times. They're like, well, Critical Role started as a Pathfinder game. What if they had never changed into D&D 5th Edition? What if they had stayed a Pathfinder game? Pathfinder would be the number one. No, it never would have worked. You want to know why? Because Pathfinder's too hard to follow. The reason 5th Edition and Critical Role exploded the way it is because it's very, very easy to follow. Pathfinder, especially 1st Edition, 2nd Edition is not really better. It's too difficult to follow because there's so many rules that players will do things and no one will be able to figure out why they did it or how they were able to do it. It'll just sound like they're making shit up. And then the DM will make up more shit and then it makes the DM look bad. So Critical Role, had they stuck with Pathfinder, Critical Role wouldn't exist now. It would have died out after... It would have died out before the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel died out. And the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel only lasted a few years. I have been making YouTube videos like 2 or 3 times longer than the Geek and Sundry Twitch channel existed in its entirety. Pathfinder was never going to beat Dungeons & Dragons or Wizards of the Coast ever. They simply don't have the ability to do. And again, they're not a good company. Look into some of the controversies that Pathfinder and Paizo have been a part of. They're a pretty despicable company, and they like to exploit their workers a lot. They're also not super nice to people that do start infringing on their copyright, but we won't get into that. So yeah, the Creative Commons thing is a really, really big deal. Wizards of the Coast has just lost all control over 5.1. I have no idea what's going to happen with 1D&D. And again, I'm going to say this a million times. 1D&D is D&D 5.5. It is the Essentials line of 5th edition. It is not 6.0. They will have a 6.0. It'll probably come out in I think 1D&D is going to last maybe 2 or 3 years. Especially after all this, it may not even last that long. They may just ditch 1D&D and start 6th edition within a year or so. Because this whole thing, they need a milestone to deal with shit. So yeah, I've not been super impressed with 1D&D. I haven't disliked it. I don't think it's the worst thing to ever happen, but nothing about it has really got me super interested in it. But I'm interested to see what they decide to do with the SOD. if they continue to release all their SRDs as Creative Commons, that would be a huge, huge thing. And to me, that would mean that Wizards of the Coast is driving this and not Hasbro. Bare minimum, my theory on this is that Hasbro did not have a say in this. Somebody at Wizards of the Coast went, okay, this is what we are doing. And you can bitch and moan as much as you want, but this is what's going to happen. And if you want to fire us, it's perfectly fine. Find someone else to run this company the way that we do. That's what it feels like to me. I have nothing to back this up. This is a feeling. Because this, again, from a business perspective, this is not a great move for making money. It's a fantastic move for getting people to trust you again. But yeah. So overall, I'm happy with this. I've read the SRD Creative Commons license. Anyone can read a Creative Commons license. It is written specifically so anyone can understand it. And it's a paragraph. It is an entire page that consists of like a paragraph broken up into 3 pieces. It is the easiest thing in the world to read. If anyone does, well, let's read over the new Creative Commons license, shoot them in the face. They are twisting your leg, or they're doing it to be funny. I hope to all that is holy that they're doing it to be funny, because there's no legal expertise needed to read a Creative Commons license. There just isn't. They're written specifically so normal human beings can read them. But anyway, so we literally have gotten everything we possibly could have gotten. There isn't a better way that this could have gone for anyone. Anyone that's still upset at Wizards of the Coast is showing that this was never about Wizards of the Coast. And like I said, I name dropped a specific person that I'm not going to name drop anymore because I feel a little bit bad that I did it. But it doesn't mean I'm going to delete that part of the video. By the way, don't harass anyone. I don't think I need to say that to my audience, but I'll say it here. Don't go out and harass people. Yes, I just swore at a couple people quite a bit. It's because I'm very mad at them. And for anyone wondering, I would have no problem saying this to their face, though I probably would be a little bit more diplomatic in it, simply because if I'm saying it to their face, my goal would be to get some sort of a change in their perception, and just yelling at people very rarely does that. But I have no problem with anyone that I've spoken about in this video, watching this video, and calling me up on Zoom and having a conversation with me about it. I stand by everything that I said. That being said, I don't believe anyone needs to go out and force them to watch this if they don't want to. I will guarantee they're feeling bad enough as it is. Whether or not they will admit it to themselves. This has taken a huge toll on everyone involved. And especially when they doubled down on, well, I guess 2 stories have to be right. That was someone that was extremely upset with themselves, trying to find a way to justify not saying I was wrong. It's a very, very common thing for immature people to do. And by immature, I'm not using it in the derogatory sense. I'm talking about when you reach a certain maturity level, admitting when you are wrong is just kind of a default response. Up until you get to that level, you don't. You are never wrong. You were manipulated. You were lied to. You were whatever. It's never your fault. Not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that is how people in that maturity level deal with things. And it's not an age thing. It is entirely about your emotional and psychological maturity. So I still think there are a relatively good person that just did some bad things. And if for whatever reason you are actually watching this, and again, I'm not going to name you anymore. If you want to talk about this, my DMs are always open on Twitter. It is generally the easiest place to get in contact with me. You can comment here on YouTube. There is a messaging feature on YouTube. I was not aware it existed, and I don't know if it still exists, but I have gotten messages from fans that take me forever to read. So if you're trying to get in contact with me, maybe don't message me on YouTube. But yeah, tweet at me on Twitter. Send me a message. You want to talk about this? I'm very, very happy to talk about this, and I won't yell at you. I won't condemn everything that you've done. I've done that enough in this video. If you really want to talk to someone and figure out exactly what happened, what went wrong, find a way to get past this, or if you just want to admonish me for the things that I said, you are welcome to do that. And I am 100% happy letting you get out your frustration in any way you feel is appropriate. But I'm not going to back down from what I said. You screwed up. You screwed up big time, and you're doubling down on it, and that's not okay. You need to stop. For everyone else watching this, like I said, if you're in the boat of I'm never going to trust Wizards of the Coast again, I say this with the utmost respect I can muster. Please go fuck yourself. This is never about Wizards of the Coast. This is about a journalist trying to become more important, and it worked spectacularly. This was about big businesses trying to sabotage their biggest competitor. And the only people hurt by this were regular Joes like you and me. So if you feel that you can never trust Wizards of the Coast again, they never lied. As much as certain people on the internet will sit there and read things and go, lie, 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 like a dipshit. Nothing they said was a lie. And they've proven it over and over and over again. The only people that lied were the journalists and the YouTubers that covered this shit. So you want to be mad at someone, be mad at the people that lied. Be especially mad at the people that lied and are unwilling to admit that they lied. Don't trust them. Don't support them. Or at least don't support them spreading more lies like this. I'm not going to tell you to not support their other endeavors. Because again, at least one of them that I've mentioned by name but will no longer, I did have the utmost respect and admiration for. And I still admire the work that they used to do. I just cannot respect what they have done recently. And it's really sad. So, OGL 1.2 is dead. Leap for joy. 5.1 is officially Creative Commons, or will be. I have to look at the announcement to find out if it's officially out now or if it's going to be soon. There is no better end to this. There isn't. It's incredible. I would love to see Wizards of the Coast release 3. I'd like them to release 3rd edition in Creative Commons. To be perfectly honest, what I'd really like them to do is I would like them to create a 4th edition SRD, because there is a 4th edition SRD, but it's pointless. All it does is it lists the things that are not technically protected by trademark in the First Player's Handbook, and then it points you to I think it's called the GSL, which was 4th edition's version of the OGL, and it sucked. It was extremely more restrictive, and it wasn't great. So yeah, I would love to see them release 4th edition under Creative Commons. I think that would be amazing. I would be so incredibly happy if that became a thing. Yeah. It is not possible to overstate just how great 5th edition being in Creative Commons is. This opens up so many things that couldn't exist. You can now create competitors to D&D Beyond legally. Yes, there are other character creators that exist. They're illegal. But they won't be for very much longer. As long as they take out copywritten stuff, they won't be for very much longer. That's amazing. Competition is always good in a market. Always. If you learn nothing else about economics, competition is always good for the consumer. There is never a situation where competition is bad for the consumer. Competition can be bad for certain businesses, and in certain markets can create barriers to entry that actually prevent competition from happening. Competition can prevent competition. It's weird. That's why economics is a science and requires a lot of study to understand. But competition is never bad for consumers. It's always good. And this is going to increase competition in the market. It's not going to hurt D&D in any way, shape, or form. For anyone thinking that, well, this means that a new Pathfinder... No. Pathfinder was a freak of nature. And if it was run by someone smarter than the people that are actually running Paizo and not quite as unethical as they are, Paizo might be bigger than it is right now. But they make a lot of bad business decisions based on ego and greed. And so they're not quite as successful as they could be. That's how it works. I will be happy to put this to rest. I will see you guys on Monday with a new Discovering New Dragons. All right? Bye-bye.